کے کلیجے سے کوئی برچی نکالے 18 برس والے کو اللہ سنبھالے غم اپنا جوالال کا اے بھولنے والے خون بہتا ہوا زخم ہے دامن میں چھپا لے خاموش ہے ماں ہاتھوں سے دل اپنا سنبھالے کس طرح جواں بیٹے کا ماں داغ اٹھا لے تقدیر سے ٹکراتی ہے لیلا کے یہ نالے اکبر کیا جنگل میں مجھے کس کے حوالے پیری میں سنبھلتی نہیں بھرپور جوانی شبیر کو اے موت ذرا ہاتھ بڑھا لے لاتے ہیں ضعیفی میں جواں بیٹے کا لاشا لاتے ہیں ضعیفی میں جواں بیٹے کا لاشا اے موت ذرا بڑھ کے کلیجے سے لگا لے زینب کے لیے سخت ہے یہ صبر کی منزل یہ داغ جوانی وہ کس طرح اٹھا لے ماں دکھ جلی ہے دیوی پہ سر پیٹ رہی ہے اکبر تیری اماں کا جگر کون संभाले। जाएगा न शबीर की आँखों से अंधेरा, जाएगा न शबीर की आँखों से अंधेरा। ऐ बुझती हुई शम्माए इमामत को उजाले। अकबर के कलेजे से कोई बरछी निकाले। 18 बरस वाले को अल्लाह संभाले। पर मोहम्मद वाल मोहम्मद सलवात। सूरतुल मुबारकतुल फातिहा।
सल्लल्लाहु नबी। लैला ये कह रही थी मैयत पे नौजवां की, गुर्बत में आस तोरी बेटा ज़ईफ़ माँ की। समझी थी आफतों में तुम माँ का साथ दोगे, बिगड़ी मगर मुकद्दर गर्दिश में आसमां की। दागे जवां पिसर से सबको खुदा बचावे, कितनी अजीम तर है मंजिल ये इम्तिहान की। कितनी मशाक़तों से 18 साल पाला, आकर क़ज़ा ने सारी मेहनत मेरी फ़िग़ा की। सुगरा से करके वादा आए तुम वतन से, तेरे वो राह देखी हर वक्त बाई जां की। दश्ते बला में छोरा ए लाल माँ को तन्हा, और तुम ने राहक में ते मंज़िले फ़ता की। लैला ये कह रही थी میاد پہ نوجواں کی. محمد وال محمد صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم.
پر محمد والے محمد صلوات. اکبر تمہیں معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو. اکبر تمہیں معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو. اس عالم غربت میں تمہیں جان دوں کیسے، اس دشت مصیبت میں تمہیں جان دوں کیسے، اس وقت قیامت میں تمہیں جان دوں کیسے. اے لال جو تم اذن وغا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو. کیا گزرے گی اس باپ کے دل پر نہیں سوچا، تو نے یہ میری جالی اکبر نہیں سوچا. مر جاؤں گا میں تجھ سے بچھڑ کر نہیں سوچا، تم مجھ سے ضعیفی کا عصا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو. دل روتا ہے نظروں سے اگر دور ہو بیٹا، کس طرح جدائی تیری منظور ہو بیٹا. تم ہی ہو میری آنکھیں میرا نور ہو بیٹا، مجھ سے میری آنکھوں کی ضیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو. دنیا سے گیا جس گھڑی محبوب خدا کا، نانا کی زیارت کو تڑپتا تھا نواسا، نانا کی زیارت کو تڑپتا تھا نواسا. اے لال تجھے اس لیے خالق سے تھا مانگا، مقبول ہوئی میری دعا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو. ایک روز تجھے آن کے مانگا تھا پھوپھی نے، 18 برس نازوں سے پالا تھا پھوپھی نے، بیٹوں سے بھی زیادہ تمہیں چاہا تھا پھوپھی نے، احسان جو زینب نے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو، اسلام پہ خود اپنا لہو رن میں بہاؤ، سینے پہ سینہ شان سے میدان میں کھاؤ، تصویر پیمبر کی تہ خاک ملاؤ، کیا اس لیے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو، تم باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ ابھی بیٹا اپنے باپ سے کہتا ہے بابا مجھے بابا مجھے معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہا ہوں، ایک باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہا ہوں، بابا مجھے معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہا ہوں، ایک باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہا ہوں، اکبر تمہیں معلوم ہے کیا مانگ رہے ہو، ایک باپ سے مرنے کی رضا مانگ رہے ہو۔ بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات۔
بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم. Malam Dungarsi, Sheikh Vinay, my elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Just one announcement, it's more of a request. Alhamdulillah, we've been very good with our, taking care of the parking on the ladies' side and improving a lot from the previous years. The one request we do have is, it's still becoming an issue on the gents' side, where we have a problem with, especially with loading and offloading. We do request, we know there's an issue right at the entrance of the gents' side, where, technically it's a no parking side, but people can park if they have the stickers. We're not going into the details of that, but bottom line being is that if we can please keep that spot open there for at least two cars or one car, because the idea being that those who cannot walk, who have a impairment, disability, a wheelchair, walking, walker, they should have a way of being able to come off the car while not in the middle of the road. So that's the only request. We can keep going into technical details of who has a permit and who doesn't, and we're here for Zadari. The request is to please be courteous. It will help a lot, it will go a long way. I know we mentioned it year to year, but every year sometimes we have new people, sometimes we have people maybe who forget. So it's just a courtesy request. Also in these days when we have a lot of people attending, sometimes people don't park very appropriately with a lot of space. You end up parking very, very far. Again, please be courteous. We're having a lot of people coming. So inshallah, if we can please take care of that, we'd appreciate it. I'm sure those people who have family members with disabilities will appreciate it even more. So whatever you can do, we would appreciate, Asant. There's a request for Ramayu for a lady in Orlando who is on life support, Sister Zerabai Ansar Kanani. If you can please remember her and all the others who are in need of our du'as on days like this, we should please keep them in our du'as. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul mustarra idha da'a wa yakshifu su عما يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 اللهم صل على محمد وعلى. We invite Brother Muntazir to please give us an update on the project and fundraising. Ahsan.
Our guest speaker, Sheikh Vinay Khetia, our resident Zakir, Dr. Raza Dungarsi, scholars, sisters, brothers in Iman, Assalamu alaikum. I would like to give you a brief update on last evening's Hazrat Abbas drive. Alhamdulillah, we raised $100,000 last night, and with the matching challenge, our total collection was a staggering $200,000. Let us recite two more loud Nare Salawats for this outstanding response from our members. Our members sent us a clear message with regards to moving to a new center that is convenient and meets our needs. What made this even sweeter was the fact that the response was evident from all age groups. We were overwhelmed, leading our treasurers to work overtime to process the many donations. We thank each and every donor for your generous contribution. We have now collected a total of $2,420,000. Approximately 1.2 million is on the way, and we expect to have these funds very soon, hopefully by October 15th. This would bring our total to $3,640,000. Given that we need 4 million by October 31st, our shortfall now stands at approximately 380,000. With about 3 weeks to go, we urge our members to continue to assist us in any way possible, even with short-term loans, so that it would enable us to close on time. You can approach myself, Brother Murtaza Nathani, or any member of our team for this. Help us keep this momentum strong by encouraging each other to donate generously. With that, I say thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات.
رحم الله من قرأ سورة المبارك الفاتحة. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، والصلاة والسلام على خيرة خلق الله وأفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، ولا سيما بقية الله ولا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين Al-Hujjat ibn Hassan Ajalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم الكتاب المجيد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فلا تعجبك أموالهم ولا أولادهم آمنا بالله صدق الله العلي العظيم. Tonight I want to talk about the importance, well, tonight and tomorrow tomorrow will be our last night, well, technically, before Ashura. I want to talk about two things: happiness and contentment through Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Remember, I began, 9 nights ago or 8 nights ago and we've continued every night to talk about how we journey to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the words of Imam al-Hussein. Right? And how the road to God is paved by Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Of course, it's paved by all the ma'asumin, but we're specifically looking at Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And one of the things that the Imam teaches us in his life and his death are two important things. One is kifaya, which is contentment. The other one is happiness. What do these two things mean? And in order for us to see this as clear or as bright as the sun, we go to the day of Ashura. The riwayat tell us that after the Imam was covered in about 100 wounds, some say 33 stab wounds, we're not entirely sure. Covered in wounds, right? Rashakuhu bisiham wa nibal, as the tradition state, right? That they showered his body with spears and arrows, right? The Imam of our time tells us this. However, the riwayat say, Baqiya al-Hussein thalathat sa'at. That Hussein remained for 3 hours in the day, laying there. For 3 hours, the riwayat tell us. He laid there. Some say paralyzed. We're not entirely sure. Mulattikhan bidamihi, soiled in his own blood. So he had to literally sit in his own pool of his own blood for 3 hours before they killed him. Because we know that each time they would come close, they would walk away. They would come close and they would walk away. Right? So they just stared at him for 3 hours. He was just sitting there before that mal'oon came to do what he had to do. Right? وَالشِّمْرْ جَالِسٌ عَلَى صَدْرِهِ, and he sat on his chest. And then that was the beginning of another chapter of the heavens that was going to open. But for 3 hours he laid there, or he sat there, رَامِكًا بِطَرْفِهِ إِلَى السَّمَاءِ, staring at the sama. And he was crying out, yunadi. Do you know what the Imam was crying? What he was, not crying in the sense of weeping, yunadi in the sense of crying out. Saying, Ya Ilahi, sabran ala qada'ik. Can you imagine? The man is covered in wounds. His children are dead. He, according to the riwayat, we will get to this on Sham al-Ghariba a little bit more. According to the reliable reports that we have from the Imam of our time and others, the Imam was forced to watch them pillage his women. That in fact, according to some reports, he was still alive when the attack on the tent began. But because he was paralyzed from his wounds, he could not get up. So the Imam of our time tells a tarfan khafiyya, that he would just blink secretly, like this, with his head. Wa Husayna wa ghariba. What does it mean to be gharib? And he says, Ya ilahi, sabran ala qada'ik, patience with your decree. Wala ma'abuda siwak. Look at these words. There is no one, I have no deity, no one to worship siwak except for you. Ya ghiyathul mustaghithin. That you are the one who gives relief to those who need relief. This was it. He kept saying, Ya ilahi sabran ala qada'ik, la ma'buda siwak, ya ghiyath al-mustaghithin. Over and over and over again, the riwayat al-yunadi, meaning he kept crying this out loud. He wanted no one but Allah in that moment. He needed no one but Allah. According to the traditions, he was the only one who did not cry for anyone. Everyone else said, Ya Abata, Assalamu alayka, Ya Aba Abdullah, Adrikni Ya Abata, Adrikni Ya Amma. Isn't it? Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam did not scream to anyone. Have we ever thought of this? He did not say, Oh Zainab, Ya Ukhta, Ya Ukhta. Did he? As they were pillaging his body, jumping on him. Right? Because there were so many of them, they just attacked him like animals. This is what the riwayat tell us. He did not scream. All he says is, Ya ilahi sabran ala qada'ik. Can you imagine the soul of Imam Hussain alayhi salam? What is this ruh? What is this soul of the Imam? La ma'buda siwak ya ghiyath al-mustaghithin. I have no one but you. There's no ghiyath except from you. Powerful. And in order to understand that, we have to go to the Hussein before Karbala. In a very powerful dua which the Imam recites sabahan wa masa'an, morning and night. It's known as dua sabah, for the morning and the night. Sabah wa masa'. It's a beautiful dua of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. In fact, I think one of these days, inshallah, if Allah gives me the tawfiq, I'll translate Sahifa Hussainiyya. It's the whole Sahifa of the du'as of Imam Hussein. Very beautiful, very beautiful. It's a compilation of his du'as. And in this dua for the morning and the night, he says, Allahumma innaka takfini min kulli ahadin. That, oh Allah, you have made me satisfied with you from everyone else. Wala yakfini ahadun mink. And do not make anyone sufficient for me. Min kulli ahadin ma akhafu wa ahadar. Meaning, God, I want you and only you, and don't make me rely on others. La takfini ahadun mink. This is an imam who used to recite this in the morning and the evening. And on the day of Ashura, he said, Sabran ala qada'ik. La ma'buda siwak. There is no one to be worshipped. There is no object of my worship aside from you. I have no one but you. He had no one but Allah then, and he had no one but Allah when he laid there ready to die. What is the Imam teaching us about life? Look at what he says. He says, Oh Allah, فَكْفِنِي مِن كُلِّ أَحَدٍ, and make you, for me, sufficient and enough from every person, مَا أَخَافُ أَحْذَرُ, from every single thing I may fear, from every single thing I may have a sense of anxiety about. Oh Allah, allow you to be sufficient for me in my heart. Why? Make my affairs successful and find a way out for me, because you know what I do not know. You determine what I do not determine. وَأَنْتَ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ قَدِيرٌ. Meaning we cannot understand the Hussein who laid there on the sands of Karbala unless we go back to the Hussein who used to recite this dua in the Medina and the city of his father. It's deep stuff. It speaks to the core of the spirituality and the ma'rifah and the basira of Ahlul Bayt. 3 hours of absolute terror for anyone else became 3 hours of munajat for Imam al-Hussein. And his son, Ali ibn Hussein Zain al-Abidin, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. It is no wonder that he teaches us such beautiful words in Dua Makarim al-Akhlaq when he says, وَكْفِنِي مَا يَشْغَلُنِي الْإِحْتِمَامُ بِي وَاسْتَعَمِلْنِي بِمَا تَسْأَلَنِي غَدًا عَنْ. That when the son of Hussein, who of course is learning from that father who's just crying to Allah as he laid down the sands of Karbala, teaches us in the dua for ethics, he says, oh God, let me be busy with what is most important to me. Put me to work with what you will ask me about tomorrow. Meaning, we are asking for kifaya, we are asking for sufficiency, we are asking for something very profound, and the Ahlul Bayt is truly worried for us. Do you know why they are worried? They're worried that we will live our life and we will have concerns for things that don't matter. And we will waste the precious life that we have. And we'll flush it down the toilet worrying about the things that, one, are out of our control or don't truly matter in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why do they teach us again and again and again the same lessons? And if we can't take pause at this, then I don't know what's the point of for us to learn about Ashura and Karbala. Look at what the Imam said, وَاسْتَفْرَقْ أَيَّامِ فِيمَا خَلَقْتَنِي لَا, and reserve my days for what you've created me to do. You know what istafraq means? That allow me to replace what I'm doing with something of greater purpose. Brothers and sisters, it is also very interesting that this is a dua about morality and ethics, meaning that we are unethical, we are immoral if we don't learn how to spend our time with what Allah has created us for. We are essentially immoral people, unethical people, because this is a dua of makarim al-akhlaq. So we are essentially unethical and immoral in the eyes of A'imma Tahirin if we don't learn to spend our time wisely. Fima khalaqtani la. For what insan has been created to do in this world. We are asking God for the tawfiq to take account of our time. We will be asked about two things: what we have done and what we have failed to do. But so often we spend our life writing CVs and resumes, accounting for the things that we have done. That don't matter. We hope that's accepted by Allah, and inshallah. Khalas, closed chapter. The CV of our soul should be the things that we have failed to accomplish. Our failures should be the most important thing in our life, not our success. And if our success is the thing that occupies our soul, then we have failed our Imam, we have failed Allah, and we have failed ourselves as a creation, because we have missed the purpose of our creation, which is not to look at our success, but to look at ways that we can get closer to Allah. And in order to do that, we have to accept our failures. Human beings are incredible, right? We ponder a lot about the things we've done, how far we've come. Myself included. From where I started out to where I am, Allah knows how. PhD, this and that. All of that's rubbish, garbage, all of it. Nonsense. Means nothing in the eyes of Allah and Ahlul Bayt. What they care about is where I want to go from here. What I have failed to do. How I have failed myself, how I have failed my family, how I have failed my soul, how I have failed my Imam. And how I'm ready to correct those failures. People don't need to hear about our accomplishments. That's just another form of self-worship. Oh, I built this business and that business and this business and I have this much money and my investment went from this to this and kada wa kada wa kada. And those are even material things, so those have zero value in the eyes of Allah. So I pray 5 times a day, okay, alhamdulillah. I pray Salatul Layl, okay, alhamdulillah. I wake up for Fajr, alhamdulillah. Maybe once in a while I'll do a mustahab fast, alhamdulillah. Oh, that's meaningless. It's thawab with Allah, but it's meaningless to our personal development. Books of akhlaq and spirituality and hadith never tell us to contemplate over what we've done. They tell us to contemplate over what we have failed to do. And the hadith is so profound, and that's why we have to think, my dear brothers and sisters, whether we're 15, whether we're 25, whether we're 55, whether we're 75 or 85. Each and every one of us have a series of failures. But the problem is, because we are so self-involved and so self-indulgent, that we have trouble looking at ourselves in the mirror and seeing a failure. And that's okay, because when we do that, our heart opens to Allah with honesty. And then we can begin transformation. But transformation must begin from a point of admission of failure. Not that we're bad people, but that we have failed at a series of things. Whether it be our temper, whether it be our salah, whether it be our fasting, whether it be spending time with our children. Or we have failed at time management. I'll give a very simple but profound example. You have 2 cars that you can buy. One is $950 a month on a lease. The other one is $500. I know if I choose the $950, things will be a little bit more tight and I'll have to put in more overtime at the office. If I choose the $950 and because of that 1 hour I could not read Quran with my children, then I have failed. I have failed my Imam. I have failed my life. I have failed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because I've not done فِيمَا خَلَقْتَنِي لَا what I have been created to do. If I am satisfied in the situation that I have, and I could spend that extra hour with my child, inculcating the love of Ahlul Bayt in their heart, and if I have failed to find that extra hour because I wanted a certain vehicle instead of another vehicle, then I have failed and I am essentially committing an immoral and unethical act because I've betrayed makarim al-akhlaq. I've betrayed what my imam expects from me. And I've betrayed being a Shia, and I don't, essentially in my heart, deserve to be a Shia. For all intents and purposes, I will present myself outside as I am. But when I face my imam, I know that I'm an embarrassment to him because the extra hour that I knew I could have, I could use that extra hour, but I didn't. I used it for something that has no purpose in his eyes. It's absolutely superfluous. This is deep. This is what Imam al-Hussein is referring to. That, oh Allah, I want a relationship with you where I am free of everyone. فيما أخاف وأحذر. From whatever I fear or I have anxiety about, Allah, fill my heart with your light, with your nur, with your mahabba, with your love, so that I can raise a family the way I want to raise them. This is such a powerful hadith of the sixth Imam. Salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Brothers, we're in a race against time. We are in a race against time. Look at what the Imam says, the sixth Imam. He says, Laysa minna. So when the Imam begins a hadith by saying that this person is not a Shia, Laysa minna, meaning that he is kicked out of the group of the wilaya of Ahlul Bayt. Laysa minna. Man lam yuhasib nafsahu fi kulli yawmin. The one who does not take account of themselves every single day. فَإِنْ عَمِلَ خَيْرًا استزاد الله منه وحمد عليه. If they've done a good deed, they ask Allah for the opportunity to do more good, and they thank Allah and praise Allah for that. وَإِنْ عَمِلَ شَرًّا. And if they have done something evil, meaning a sin, astaghfirullah minhu wa taba ilay. That they seek God's forgiveness then and there, and they return to Him then and there. Every single day. Fi kulli yawmin. In fact, there's a whole chapter in Wasalu Shia of Hur al-Amili, one of our very important books of hadith, which describes this as being a darura, a necessity. Laysa minna, meaning that this person's out, talaq from us. Man lam yuhasib nafsahu fi kulli yawmin. The person who does not account for their soul every single day. Not in Muharram only, not on Ashura, 9th and 10th of Muharram, 8th of Muharram. No. Fi kulli yawmin. So there is, when we want to enter the fold of Ahlul Bayt, if we just want to be muhib, we want to be on the outside circle, khalas, fine. هذا شيء آخر, that's something else. But if we want to, these ziyarat to mean something real, Silmu liman salamakum, harabun liman harabakum, all these profound and heavy words. I will fight with whom you fight. I'm at peace with whom you are at peace with. Then the Imam is saying that we are not at peace with them until we take account of ourselves every single day. And until we take account of the failures in our decision making. This is the path, and that's what Ahlul Bayt have said. This is an amr or deen, sa'abun mustas'ab. It's very difficult. It's heavy, it's thaqeel. And this is the Imam who laid there for 3 hours just saying, Ya Ilahi, Ya Ilahi. In absolute love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And on this note, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam has, again, he was with his companions and he was worried about them. He saw that they were wasting their time. He saw that there was a problem with some of his associates. And he said something interesting. He says, "Kafa bima qala Allah azza wa jal li rasulihi." He said that first of all, before I say what I'm going to say, what Allah has said to His Messenger should be sufficient for you. Meaning that if this ayat of Quran is not sufficient for us, then Allah is not sufficient for us, the Imam is not sufficient for us, and this deen is not sufficient for us. Kafa bima qala Allah azza wa jalla rasulihi. Fiqh al-hadith, very important to understand the hadith. Sufficient is what Allah has said to His Messenger on this subject. From Surah Tawbah. فَلَا تُعْجِبْكَ أَمْوَالُهُمْ وَلَا أَوْلَادُهُمْ. That do not be mesmerized by their wealth and their children. This is very profound, because a fiqh masala can't address this. We could do everything halal, stay away from haram, but our soul can still be filled with darkness when we're constantly obsessed and amazed with the things that don't matter to Allah, which is money, power, and the success of other people and their children. لا تعجبك أموالهم ولا أولادهم. It's almost like Imam is saying that Allah's words are so heavy and so powerful that we all might as well just be quiet now. That's the end of the story, khalas. Nothing more to say. Because for the mu'mineen and the mu'minat, the kalam of Allah penetrates their hearts. It's a very quick reminder for them. Meaning people who constantly ask why I don't have what he has or she has. Why my kid is working at a no-name firm, but his kid got a job at a well-known firm. This is poison. This is a poison of the soul. Some. And the incredible thing about it is God is not demanding us just to do halal and haram. He's demanding that we transform our very consciousness. Because this is something so deep within us that it's not something that necessarily, okay, I eat halal, I don't eat, that won't necessarily fix that. This is something much deeper and much more profound and much more problematic than that. Because it speaks to our character. It speaks to who we are as human beings. And that's something, of course, that we only show and is known by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And those things that Allah reveals to the Imam. God is demanding that we transform that we become something, that morality and ethics is not necessarily limited to the realm of doing, of paying your taxes and paying your khums and praying your namaz. It's a morality is something that comes from deep within. That I am still immoral if I constantly obsess over what I don't have and what other people have. That is a form of immorality in the Islamic tradition, the spiritual tradition of Ahlul Bayt. So often we think of immorality and morality in terms of, simply performing wajibat and abstaining from muharramat. But when we think poison, it's also a form of unethical behavior, but that's at the level of our consciousness. That's not something that we can account for in a risala of a marja, in a book of Islamic laws. That's not something, my dear brothers and sisters, that we can account for because we perform certain rituals, which are sacred and holy, and we've talked about why they are important. That's not something we can account for by building institutions. We can build a place where we can get together to talk about it, but that won't account for it. We are the only people that can account for it ourselves in front of God. And the A'imma point to very strong things. It is almost as if, my dear brothers and sisters, that they can see the depths of our hearts. You know, and every time they fire an arrow, it lands so deep that it just kind of stops you in your tracks. You know, what did they say? Something got your mouth, or the cat got your mouth, or I don't know, whatever. There's a saying, right? When you just don't have a response. The cat got your tongue, right? And you just don't have a response. You're just, that's so true, I don't even know how to respond. A'imma tahirin, a'imma tahirin. There's nothing like them. The way they quote the Quran, the way they pray to Allah, the way they speak to Allah. But the ultimate question that is coming out of all of this is, what gives us fulfillment? What makes us happy? In what, through whom, and by what do we find happiness? Sa'ada. And as I'm looking for happiness, looking for contentment, will I take a road which is called being true to yourself, right? Eat, pray, love, go to India, sit in an ashram for 10 years or 5 years, experience vegetarian food, come back, and somehow you find yourself. Or, that's one way, that's the modern way, that's the cool way, right? Find yourself. Or there's 124,000 prophets and revealed books and an imam that laid there for 3 hours in agonizing pain, crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's that, or this nonsense that is peddled in the media and Hollywood, which is put a backpack on and go to some ashram in India and find yourself, and you've probably maybe eaten the Hindu vegetarian food for the first time and somehow have an epiphany or something like that. Or there's ecstasy for 3 hours on the day of Ashura. Is that divine reality, or is that divine reality? Sallu ala Muhammad wa that fundamentally a life that is not touched by the love of Allah and the light of Allah and the mercy of Almighty is a miserable life. It's miserable. That we can travel faster than ever today, my dear brothers and sisters. We can live longer than ever today. We can communicate with different parts of the world at speeds that were unthinkable. But a question remains, are we any happier than we were 2 generations ago? With everything that we have, healthcare, cancer treatments, technology, Wi-Fi. Are we truly happier? Has this somehow brought us closer to a life of kifaya and contentment? A life of intoxicating love of God and the Ahlul Bayt? Or has it taken us further away? Or are we somewhere in between? Statistics tell us that we are no happier than we were 2 generations ago. I mean, these are numerous surveys that have been taken. Brothers and sisters, you know what the problem is? Our virtues, what we consider a virtue, unfortunately, in this society, and I'm talking about the global society, is a pursuit of self-interests. That many of us do not have a collective purpose. We have individualistic, selfish needs. And then we wonder why our communities are falling apart. We wonder why when we say 25 years from now, who will lead the community? Who will lead the Shia communities and the Jama'at? We live in these individualistic pockets where each and every one of us are chasing like animals and rats after a little piece of cheese. And we don't want to share that cheese with anyone else. And we're going to keep going and going and going. And to hell with my brother and to hell with my sister, and everyone's going to be thrown aside. How can a community move forward like that, other than being destroyed? We spend so much time worrying about why people have what we don't. Quran is telling us this. Imam is telling us this. Min sharri hasidin idha hasad. We spend so much time filled with anger and envy and poison. Self-pity. Sitting at home having a pity party. Why I don't have this? Why not? Why not? Why does so-and-so have this apartment in Manhattan and my son can't afford one? This is the poison of destruction of the Shia community. Because Imam Zaman has told us in a letter written in 410, a very beautiful statement in this letter from the Imam of our time. He says, if only this community, Ashya'ana, were given the tawfiq of Allah for what? Ijtima'in min al-qulub, for their hearts to become one. They shall see me. But the problem is when we're all chasing after a little piece of cheese, and we don't want our brother or sister to get his hands on that same piece. We're destroying ourselves, we're destroying our community, and we are putting ham and gham in the heart of Imam Zaman. And in that sense, we are worse than his enemies, because at least his enemies are upfront about being his enemies. But sometimes as Shia, we can destroy the madhab from within. And of course we know according to the Quran, that is the worst enemy. The ones that the Prophet could see in front of him and know on the battlefield is one thing. The ones that are destroying the ummah and the lovers of Ahlul Bayt from within is something else altogether. Happiness is a state of being, my dear brothers and sisters. And often again, we find our relationships are struggling because we're all chasing after something. And we're so busy chasing after that we always want to think, how can I manipulate this person or this person to get what I want? Even our own spouses. Right? We see them as an object of desire, as an object of fulfillment. Maybe they see us as objects of fulfillment. This is all the problem here, because my dear brothers and sisters, happiness, the door to happiness is one that opens outwards, not inwards. And then certain decisions are made, lifestyle choices are made, career choices are made, and then we have to live with the disastrous spiritual consequences of these decisions. And not only for our lifetime, but for our children's generation and the generation after that. We shouldn't simply think that the poor decisions that we make will only affect us. So of course, a domino effect. In the same way, when we destroy the environment and we're going to leave our children with, for example, an ocean without fish, or fish that we can eat, we also, God forbid, have the potential to leave them with a community that is no longer existing, with just a shell but no soul inside. Because the focus is not Allah, oh Allah, give me kifaya, I need nothing but you. Let me serve my brother and my sister and my wife and my children. Let happiness be a door that always opens outwards, and I don't expect it to open inwards towards me. That my Lord, you have made yourself sufficient for me. Let me not drown in my own pity about worrying about this and that and this and that. Because my whole life will go by and I would have lost you. And I lose you and I've lost everything. And then there I go to hell forever. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And this is precisely what the prophets came to tell us. This is precisely what the prophet could see in front of his eyes. Brothers and sisters, the prophets were not there to reform political regimes. This is a very important point. I want you to focus on this point here. Prophets did not come for political revolutions. They came to revolutionize consciousness itself. That is, what is this consciousness and the ideas that allow that regime to be there? That's a much deeper question. And if we've not understood that, then we've not understood Nubuwwah. We've not understood why they rejected the Prophet's message. It wasn't because he was saying worship one God and don't worship three. Not entirely. He was going somewhere that they didn't feel comfortable with. They said, this is too much. You're asking us to look inside our souls? They called him Majnoon. You're asking us to do muhasabat of nafs? This guy's talking crazy talk. Na'udhu billah, that's what they've accused him in the Quran. There were very few people that bought into this vision. Middle Mu'mineen, Sayyidah Khadija, Zayd, and a few others. And that vision was always countercultural. I'll repeat it again. That vision was countercultural. It was not some kind of domesticized version of Islam, which can be put on a leash and controlled and subjugated to some kind of routinized scheme. It was one in which the heart had to be honest before God. And there wasn't anyone that could put a chain on that heart. And the Arabs of pre-Islamic Arabia did not like it because the business as usual was being interrupted. You had men and women calling for their freedom, not for themselves, but for God. You had people talking about a day of judgment, death. These guys were saying, you're crazy. It's what they told them. The Majnoon, Kahin, these are the words. Sha'ir. Why? Because he was telling people, I'm not interested only if you remove the gods from the Kaaba and just put no gods in there. I want you to break the gods and the idols in your heart, in your qulub. They were not ready to do that. They were not ready to take that step. Eventually they tried to kill him and he had to leave for Medina. Are we ready to take that step? The Prophet knew through the Quran that the end was coming. The party was going to be over very soon. That these guys are living like they'll live forever. That's a thing of the pre-Islamic Arabs, right? They have poems, for example. These are poems. If you want to find me, you'll find me in the bar drinking this drink, 5 ales, and so on and so forth. These were the poems of the pre-Islamic Arabs. How is that poetry any different from the media today? How different is it content-wise? Subject-wise? So don't be afraid to be countercultural. Or what's considered counterintuitive in this society. Our Prophet was called Majnoon, so I don't mind being called Majnoon. In fact, I would take that as a source of faqr and pride. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Look at what the Quran says. And the Prophet knew this, that the Prophet knew that God is fed up with phony religion, selfishness, and presumptive knowledge. That everyone's got an opinion on something. In fact, there's a whole article written at Princeton University called, "What is it with?" And then there's a word that I won't use because it's not a good word to use. Basically, the whole article is about how most of the things that we say make no sense, they have no evidence, and they have no basis. That God was so fed up with this arrogant presumption of knowledge that he says, "Inna adhab rabbik lawaqi'un," in Surah Tur, that the adhab of your Lord is about to come. وَمَا لَهُ مِن دَافِعٍ, and there's no one to protect you. There's none to avert it. يَوْمَ تَمُورُ سَمَاءُ مَوْرًا, the day when the heavens shall shake, the mountains shall go on their travels. فَوَيْلٌ يَوْمَئِذٍ لِلْمُكَذِّبِينَ, and woe upon the people, curse upon the people who were the people of falsehood on that day. Who are they? Look at this verse. الَّذِينَ هُمْ فِي خَوْضٍ يَلْعَبُونَ, those who in vain discourse just played their whole life. They played, never thought the lights were going to go off, and then they go off and they're done. And it's all over. وَمَا لَهُ مِن دَافِعٍ, and there's no one to protect. Nothing left. That the adhab has arrived. The Prophet could see this in front of his eyes. But people often did not accept it because they couldn't see further than the tip of their own nose. The problem was short-sightedness. People only thought about tomorrow. They didn't think about their whole life. The rejection of the message of the Prophet was one of short-sightedness. And if we can't change, then our inability to change is a result of us not being able to see past the end of our own nose, or not being willing to see past it, and to understand and see that the message of the Prophet and the Ahlul Bayt was truly one of profound change. That it was one that was countercultural. How? There are two forms of consciousness or ways of being. There's those of royalty and dynasty. And the concern of the people in power is to maintain their wealth, the designation of their children, and to continue that machine going and make sure there's enough oil in the parts and the mechanisms in order to allow that machine to continue, that machine of dynasty and king-making. On the other hand, you have the vision of the prophets, which tells us that all of that is coming to an end. That vision is false. That vision is but a mirage. I'll give you the example of a casino. Why is it that a Las Vegas casino is open 24 hours? Why is it that the food and the drink don't stop? You seldom will see a restaurant close or the bar close in a Las Vegas casino, or that roulette table stop spinning. Because they want us to think that with the right lighting and the right humidity and the right ventilation, we'll be in this state at which we will think that the party won't come to an end, that the bells of the slot machines won't stop ringing. And when the prophets come and the imams come, they say, whoa, whoa, this is all scam. You're being duped. Obviously they don't like them. Obviously they're going to kill them, torture them, throw them in prison. And in the case of Imam al-Hussein, do the most disgusting and horrible things that a human being would do to another human being. Why? Because the Imam's words would bring these empires down. They would shatter them, not by changing a leader. It's not about changing one leader, putting another leader in. It's about changing the entire consciousness that forms the foundation of that way of thinking. That is the risala of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. And this was the message of his companions. That even when they were thirsty, my dear brothers and sisters, they had this sufficiency with God. That Muslim bin Osajah was gone, Habib was gone. Hussein is left completely alone. Meaning with Banu Hashim. That now the tribe of Hashim is left. The swords are being sharpened for war. The children are thirsty. And the Imam had to make a very strong decision. And that was to allow his son to fight. We know based on the traditions that Ali al-Akbar was one of the first people to fight. Again, brothers and sisters, look at the courage of the Imam. The Imam is saying that I will give everything that I have to offer before I start taking from others. How many of us are ready to do that? He's ready to sacrifice his 27-year-old son before the other family members of Hashim, of Banu Hashim. This man, young man, had the bravery of Hamza, the courage of the Haydar, the Prophet's beauty and speech, and Imam al-Hussein's patience. He was like a perfect combination, the most beautiful combination that Allah could create. You know, it's just, Allah can create everything, but I mean, it's the most epitome of beauty. Abu Abdullah took so much pride in this child that when it came time for Ali Akbar to go forth, Abu Abdullah showed no hesitation. The riwayat do not indicate him saying, no, I don't give you permission. Nor do the riwayat indicate that he had to come multiple times to ask. Imam al-Hussein knew he could not face Muslim ibn Aqil or Imam al-Hasan by telling them on Yawm al-Qiyamah that I kept my son in the back and I let your sons become the first sacrificial lambs. This is Abu Abdullah. He had to let him go. The Imam of our time tells us in a beautiful ziyarah, Assalamu alayka ya awwala qatil min nasl khayr salil, that peace be upon the first one to be killed from the best progeny, from the progeny of Ibrahim al-Khalil. It is reported that his mother Layla and some of the other women pleaded with him to stay. And they began to scream out and saying, have mercy on our ghurba, irham ghurbata, irham ghurbata. Don't go, la tata'ajjal al-qital. Don't hurry up to go to fight, because we don't know if we can continue without you. We don't know what we will do without Ali al-Akbar. Remember, he had the Prophet's speech. He had Imam al-Hussein's courage. He had the bravery and strength of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He had the might of Hamza. This was the pride of Banu Hashim. And the women kept pleading with him not to go. They could not stand to lose him. However, he goes forth to fight. And he begins to say, Ana Ali ibn Hussein. I am Ali, the son of Hussein. That we are the house of Allah, which is foremost in the eyes of Allah. He says, Wallah, I will not allow this illegitimate ruler to rule over us. Imam al-Hussein now begins to shout at Umar ibn Sa'ad. He says, what is wrong with you? May Allah cut off your lineage just as you have cut off mine. May Allah send someone to slay you in your own bed. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, rafa'a ra'asuhu wa yaday ila-sama. He now lifts his hands and holds his beard and he looks to the heavens. And he says, Oh Allah, I testify that this young lad most resembles the Prophet in his character and speech. Oh Allah, I testify that whenever we longed for the face of the Messenger, we would look at his face. Oh Allah, فَمْنَعَهُمْ بَرَكَاتِ الْأَرْضِ. Oh Allah, deny them of the blessings of your earth. What was transpiring in the mind of Imam al-Hussein, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. He says, Oh Allah, do not ever let their rulers be content with them. Meaning from this day forward, do not let them live one day in peace. And brothers and sisters, this prophecy came true. They did not live a single day in peace after this day. He said that they showed us enmity. They invited us. Yet now they turn to fight us and kill us. That, oh Allah, they have betrayed us. This is a betrayal in the heart of Imam al-Hussein. And the traditions tell us that his eyes were filled with tears. Can you imagine how the earth shakes from the khiyana to Imam al-Hussein? How the earth and the heavens and the throne and the skies reverberate with the shaking voice of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Ali Akbar continued to fight from the right flank to the left flank. He killed 120 men. But by now the thirst was killing him. He rides back to his father, looking at as a child does at his father. He's covered in wounds. And he says, Ya Abba, al-atash qad qatalani. That my father, thirst is killing me. He says, my father, these iron weapons have weakened me. He says, oh my father, is there any way, فَهَلْ إِلَى شُرْبَةٍ مِّن مَا سَبِيلٍ? Is there any way that I can get water? What was Imam al-Hussein to do? Do you know what happened? فَبَكَّ الْحُسَيْن بُكَاءً شَدِيدًا. That Hussein began to weep, because there was nothing that he could do. Can you imagine the malaika crying now? Can you imagine the Anbiya crying now? The Mursaleen crying now? Sayyidah Zahra crying now? Rasulullah crying now? Can we imagine this? Can we take our hearts to this? He says, Ah, Bunayya, how quickly you shall meet your grandfather. Give me your tongue. Ali Akbar takes the tongue out of his mouth. Imam al-Hussein takes the ring from his finger and he puts it in the mouth of Ali al-Akbar. Allah and His Rasul and the Imam knows why. He says, so now return to fighting. Ali al-Akbar charges out like a lion. He begins to fight. We're told that Imam al-Hussein's head was going up and down, trying to keep an eye on his son. His heart must have been beating. Munkid bin Murra al-Abdi la'natullahi ta'ala alayhi began to hit the young lion of Allah on his head. We're told that the head of Ali al-Akbar began to bleed. فَضَرَبُوا النَّاسْ بِأَسْيَافِهِمْ. That this has to be translated, that they began to chop him with their swords. Sword after sword after sword, that not one, بِأَسْيَافِهِمْ. With multiple swords they began to hit him. The barrage of stab wounds were endless. He began to hit by all sides. He now collapses onto his horse. His horse gallops off into enemy territory, and all he says is, Ya Abata! Ya Aba Abdullah! Ya Abata! How could Hussein bear the scream of his son? He says, Ya Abata, Hada Jaddi Rasulullah. He says, my father, this is my grandfather Rasulullah. He told me I shall never suffer from thirst again. But brothers and sisters, there's something else. Abul Faraj al-Isfahani tells us in his Maqtal that as Ali al-Akbar rode off, one of the archers pulled an arrow. He pulled it back. He fired the arrow. Do you know where it landed? It landed in the jugular vein of Ali al-Akbar. We're told that he put his hand over his neck, that the blood was squirting everywhere. This was the end of his life. Imam as-Sadiq says he was madbu, he was slaughtered. Ali al-Akbar falls off of his horse. They now pounce onto him. Imam al-Hussein races out into the battlefield. All he can hear is Ya Abata, Ya Abata, Ya Aba Abdullah. Then they begin to chop him, piece by piece by piece. Irban, Irban. Ya Allah, Imam al-Hussein reaches him, he says, Qatalallah qawman qataluk ya bunayya. That Allah will kill those that killed you, wa Husseina. He then puts his cheek on the cheek of his son. He says, Ala dunya ba'dak al-afaf. That this world has no more meaning without you. But brothers and sisters, it doesn't end there. Imagine the cries. Imam says, hard it is upon your grandfather and father that when you cried to them, they could not give you jawab. When you cried to them, they could not give you any ghiyath and help. Brothers and sisters, Zainab then ran out and she said, Wa Habiba, Wa Thabarat Fuada, Wa Abdullah, Wa Ali Akbar. She begins to scream. What is Hussein to do? She has now run out of the tent. He takes the body back. He tells them to put the body in the tent. They're putting the body in the tent. Do you know what he does? He put his son in his lap. He begins to wipe the blood from his face, the sand from his face. Wow, Abdullah. And then Sakina comes out. She's staring at her father. What is he to respond to her? She says, Ya Abata, what is this that I see? Aina akhi Ali al-Akbar. Where is my brother Ali? Imam al-Hussein, do you know what he did for the first time? He turned his face in shame. He did not know what to say to her. She stood there and continued to ask him. Eventually he said, your brother is dead. She comes to him, she begins to cry. She sits in his lap and she says, Baba, why did they kill my brother? He looks at her, he says, have patience, Ya Sakina. Sabran, Ya Sakina. She tries to run out of the tent. He holds on to her and he says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Wa Husseina, wa Abdullah, wa Imama, wa Ghariba.
बका बिन खानिम को वासिले जहन्नम करके अली अकबर मैदान से वापस आया, कहा बाबा बहुत प्यासा हूँ, जवान बेटे फतेहयाब होकर घर में वापस आए और सिर्फ पानी का सवाल कर रहा है, लेकिन ज़ईफ बाप मजबूर है कि बेटे को पानी न पा सके। अपना ज़बान बेटे के मुंह में रख के कहा, बेटा मेरे लाल, शायद इससे तुझे कुछ तस्कीर मिल जाए। तरफ के कहा, बाबा मुझसे तो ज्यादा आप प्यासे हो। कहा, बेटा अनकरीब तेरा जद तुझे कौसर का जाम से सैराब करेगा। अली अकबर चले और फिर न लौटो। मुर्रा बिन मुल्के चुपके कैसा पर्ची का वार किया कि शहजादे गोरे से डगमगाने लगे। गोरे से मुखातिब होकर कहा, है उकाब जल जल मुझे मेरे बाबा तक पहुंचा दे। वो अस्से वफादार हर तरफ कोशिश की कि अपना सवार नरगयादा से निकाल के खैमे तक पहुंचा दे, लेकिन जिधर वो चला जाता था अश्किया तलवार का वार करता जाता था। नतीजा ये हुआ कि मैं कातिब के लिखने वाले ही लिखते हैं, कतलो होली बिसयूफिन इरबन इरबा, तलवारों के वार से शहजादे का बदन टुकड़े टुकड़े हो गए। ज़ैनब के गोद के पाले हुए अली अकबर जलती हुई जमीन पर गिर पड़े। आवाज दी, या बता अदरिकनी, ऐ बाबा जान जल्दी जल्दी आ जाओ, इसके पहले कि आपका लाल दुनिया से मुफारिकत न कर जाए। उधर हुसैन निकले और यहाँ ज़ैनब, या अली कहते हुए जल बेटे की लाश पर हुसैन पहुंचे। दिल थाम के सुन लीजिए तो देखा कि बहन पहुंच चुकी थी। बेटे का गम भूल के पहले बहन को खैमे में वापस पहुंचा दी। शेख जाफर शिश्तरी कहते हैं कि फिर मजलूम बाप बेटे के लाश पर आए, अपने आप को गिरा दिया, मुंह पे मुंह रख के फरियाद किया, या वलदी अला दुनिया बाद कल अफा, बेटा तेरे बाद ये जिंदगानी ये दुनिया खाक है। मैं फरियाद करूंगा, आय अली मुर्तजा, आय मुश्किल कुशा के दोस्त आलम, क्यों कर ज़ईफ बाप 18 बरस वाले का टुकड़े टुकड़ा लाश उठाएंगे। जरा मदद के लिए आइए, आए बतूल उज़रा, आए फातिमतुज़ ज़हरा, जरा आप भी तशरीफ लाइए। ज़ैनब बीबी की अजब हालत है, औना मोहम्मद को निछावर करने के बाद भी अली अकबर को न बचा सके। बहादुर इमाम ने, ज़ईफ लेकिन बहादुर इमाम ने अपने फर्जंद का लाशा उठा के खैमे की तरफ चले। दूर से फिज़ा कनीज़े ज़हरा खड़ी देख रही थी, तरफ के कहा, आए मेरे हुसैन, आए मेरे हुसैन। हाँ अब्बास न रहा तो सही, साथियों आपके सब मर चुके सही, लेकिन ये घर की खादिमा हाजिर है। आगे बढ़ी और पुकारी, आए रसूल के घराने के बच्चों आओ, मौला में मौला से जवान बेटे का लाशा नहीं उठ सकता। बच्चों के सहारे फिजा ने लाश अली अकबर खैमे में लाए। उसके बाद इमाम मजलूम एक तरफ कासिम का लाशा, दूसरी तरफ अली अकबर का लाशा, और बीच में मेरा मजलूम इमाम बैठे। फिर सर से अमामा उतार के खाके करबला सर पे डाल के एक हाथ कासिम के जख्म सीने पर रखा और दूसरा हाथ अली अकबर के फटे हुए सीने पर रख के आसमान की तरफ इशारा करके आवाज दी, या अल्लाह हुसैन आज अकेला रह गया, या अल्लाह मेरा दो लाल मुझसे बिछड़ गए। बात है हुसैन।
थी तमन्ना दूल्हा बनाऊं, माथे पे तेरे सहरा सजाऊं। क्या करूं किस तरह लुटी गई मैं, जिगर के पाले किसको बनाऊं। न देखी सहरा न देखी मेहंदी, न देखी तेरी बारात बेटा, कैसे बुलाएगा। माँ पुकारी मेरे अकबर, कैसे बुलाए दाग बेटा, कैसे रुझाए। नाजों से मैंने तुमको था पाला, बचपन में अम्मा का झूला झूलाना। आई जवानी हंस के मैं बोली, अब मेरा बेटा बनेगा दूल्हा। करबो बला में कैसी खिजा थी, लुट गया मेरा बाग बेटा, कैसे बुलाएगा। मैदान से आई आवाज लैला, पर्दा हटाओ आता है दूल्हा। ठोकर खा के दौड़ के आई, देखा के सारा फटा है सीना। पुकारी उस दम ज़मीं पे गिर कर, जिंदगानी है खाक बेटा, कैसे बुलाएगा। गम अपना जवालाल का ए बोलने वाले, खून देता हुआ जख्म है, दामन में छुपा ले। लाते हैं ज़ईफ़ी में जवाबे का लाशा, ए मौत ज़रा बर के कलेजे से लगा ले। مادخ جلی دیری پہ سر پیٹ رہی ہے اکبر تیری اماں کا جگر کون سنبھالے اکبر کے کلیجے سے کوئی برچھی نکالے دل صاحب اولاد سے انصاف طلب ہے دنیا میں پسر باپ کی زینت کا سبب ہے اولاد کا ہونا بھی بڑی بخشش رب ہے سچ ہے یہ مگر داغ بھی بیٹے کا غضب ہے ہنگامہ قیامت کا بپا کرتی ہے تقدیر شبیر کو اکبر سے جدا کرتی ہے تقدیر بیویوں مارا گیا بیویوں مارا گیا دشمن کو بھی خدا نہ دکھائے پسر کا داغ دل کو فغار کرتا ہے لخت جگر کا داغ آنکھوں کا نور کھوتا ہے نور نظر کا داغ مرنا جوان بیٹے کا ہے عمر بھر کا داغ یہ حال ابن فاطمہ کے دل سے پوچھئے زخم جگر کے درد کو غائل سے پوچھئے بیویوں بیویوں مارا گیا ہر دم پکارتے تھے کہ اکبر کدھر گئے اے نور چشم بانو بے پر کدھر گئے مرتا ہے باپ اے میرے دل بر کدھر گئے آواز دو شبیہ پیمبر کدھر گئے اے میرے شیر کیا کسی جنگل میں چھپ گئے اے میرے چاند کون سی بادل میں چھپ گئے بیویوں بیویوں مارا گیا ہے نہ تیرا بیاہ رچانا ہوا نصیب ہے دلہن نہ بیاہ کے لانا ہوا نصیب پوتے کو گود میں نہ کھلانا ہوا نصیب شادی کے بدلے خاک اڑانا ہوا نصیب ہنس ہنس کے اب ماں کسے دولہا بنائے گی واری جواب دو کہ دلہن کس کی آئے گی بیویوں مارا گیا کہاں بانو نے واویلا جواں بیٹا گیا مارا کہاں بانو نے کوئی کفنی منگا لاؤ گلے میں میرے پہناؤ رکھوں گی سوگ اکبر کا جواں بیٹا گیا مارا واویلا جواں بیٹا گیا مارا کہاں بانو نے واویلا جواں بیٹا گیا مارا غم اکبر میں روں گی منع کیوں کرتے ہو مجھ کو رہوں گی جب تلک زندہ جواں بیٹا گیا کہاں بانو لیوا صفے ماتم بچھاؤں گی غم اکبر میں روں گی کئی دن کا میرا پیاسا جواں بیٹا گیا مارا کہاں
جواب آزادارو جواب کوئی کفنی منگا لاؤ گلے میں میرے پہناؤ رکھوں گی سوگ اکبر کا جواں الوداع زادارو الوداع مارا کہاں جواب آزادارو بولو سے آرا کہو لوگوں میں کہاں جاؤں علی اکبر کو کہاں پاؤں گیا رن میں میرا پیاسا جواں بیٹا رائے کہاں مانو ماہ انور لیلا علی اکبر لیلا الوداع زادارو الوداع لیلا علی اکبر لیلا نور لیلا علی اکبر لیلا نور چشم لیلا ماہ انور لیلا علی اکبر لیلا لیلا علی اکبر لیلا ماہ نور لیلا تیری شادی رچاؤں تجھے دلہا بناؤں یہی امید لیلا علی اکبر لیلا نور چشمہ لیلا ماہ انور لیلا علی الوداع زادارو الوداع لا نور لیلا تیری گودی کا بالا تیری راتوں کا جاگا یہی امید لیلا علی اکبر لیلا نور چشمہ لیلا ماہ انور لیلا علی اکبر لیلا نور چشمہ لیلا لا ماہ انور لیلا علی اکبر لیلا نور چشم ہے لیلا ماہ انور لیلا علی اکبر لیلا نور چشم ہے لیلا ماہ انور لیلا علی اکبر لیلا نور لیلا تیری شادی رچاؤں تجھے دلہا بناؤں یہی امید لیلا علی اکبر لیلا نور چشمہ لیلا ماہ انور لیلا علی اکبر لیلا الوداع زادارو الوداع لیلا ماہ نور لیلا بی نوا حسینہ سرجدہ حسینہ بی اکربہ حسینہ عائشیہ بی زنسار ماتا عائشیہ بی زنسار وماتم اے زینب ناچار اے عابد بیمار اے سکینہ زار اے شیعہ ماتم اے شیعہ بزنسار ماتم بینا و حسینہ سر جدا حسینہ بیاکربا حسینہ اے شیعہ بزنسار ماتم اے شیعہ بزنسار در این عزا و ماتم اے زینب ناچار اے عابد بیمار اے سکینہ زار اے شیعہ بزنسار عزا و ماتم اے شیعہ بزنسار بر سبتے نجاو میدان سبت پیمبر اکبر نجاو میدان شہزاد اکبر مادر نجاو میدان شہزاد اکبر نجاو میدان سبت پیمبر اکبر نجاو میدان شہزاد اکبر مادر نجاو میدان شکل پیمبر اکبر نجاو میدان شہزاد اکبر مادر نجاو میدان شہزاد اکبر مادر نجاو میدان شکل پیمبر اکبر نجاو میدان زینب پکاری اکبر نجاو میدان سبت پیمبر اکبر نجاو میدان شہزاد اکبر مادر نجاو میدان شہزاد اکبر دان سبت پیمبر نجاو میدان شہزاد اکبر مادر نجاو میدان شکل پیمبر اکبر نجاو میدان شہزاد اکبر مادر نجاو میدان شہزاد اکبر شکل پیمبر حسین شہید کربلا و ویلا ویلا اکبر نوجوان چی شد و ویلا ویلا عباس علمدارم چی شد و ویلا و ویلا عزو علی امامکم و ویلا ویلا ناد علیاً علیاً یا علی علی بادشاہ جن و بشر یا علی علی ہائے علی اکبر رائے علی اکبر را و ویلا و ویلا لا و ویلا یا مظلوم یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا علی اکبر علی اکبر
شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر زبابہ میدان جواب سب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر اکبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر اکبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر زبابہ میدان یہ سبت پیمبر کی لیلا کی کمائی ہے یہ سبت پیمبر کی لیلا کی کمائی ہے کیا مادر اکبر نے تقدیر یہ پائی ہے کیا مادر اکبر نے تقدیر یہ پائی ہے خیموں میں بپا ماتم خیموں میں بپا ماتم اے میرے جوان اکبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر 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 زبابہ جو نازو کا پالا ہے 18 برس والا جو نازو کا پالا ہے 18 برس والا زینب کا دلارا ہے 18 برس والا لیلا کا دلارا ہے 18 برس والا خیموں میں بپا ماتم خیموں میں بپا ماتم اے میرے جوان اکبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے 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 زباب سوچا بھی نہ تھا مانے یہ دن کبھی آئے گا سوچا بھی نہ تھا مانے یہ دن کبھی آئے مرنے کے لیے اکبر میدان کو جائے گا مرنے کے لیے اکبر میدان کو جائے گا خیموں میں بپا ماتم خیموں میں بپا ماتم اے میرے جوان اکبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر اکبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر اکبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے اکبر کھائیں گا کلیجے پر جس وقت سینہ اکبر کھائیں گا کلیجے پر جس وقت سینہ اکبر یہ تیری خبر سن کے مر جائیں گی ماں اکبر یہ تیری خبر سن کے مر جائیں گی ماں اکبر خیموں میں بپا ماتم خیموں میں بپا ماتم اے میرے جوان اکبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر اکبر زبابہ میدان
شب-ے پیمبر اکبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر اکبر زبابہ میدان شب-ے پیمبر اکبر شب-ے پیمبر اکبر زبابہ میدان حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا کہتا ہے زہرا کا بیٹا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا کربل سے آتی ہے صدا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من ناصر سرنا اون محمد پاس نہیں ہے قاسم کا لاشا ہے ٹکڑے بازو کٹا کے میرا غازی سو گیا ہے دریا کے کنارے غربت میں تھی شے کی صدا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا هل من ناصر ينصرنا هل من ناصر هل من ناصر ينصرنا دیکھو ضعیفی رن میں شیخی باپ ہے برہا بیٹا جوان ہے لاشائے اکبر کیسے اٹھائے کتنا کٹھن یہ امتحان ہے کاندھے پہ رکھ کے شیخ نے کہا ہر من ناصر ینصرنا ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا رباب کے خیمے میں شے نے دیکھا شور بپا ہے خود کو گرا کے جھولے سے وہ گھٹنیوں پہ چلنے لگائے اصغر نے جب سن لی صدا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا ہاتھ میں اصغر کا لاشا ہے پر نہیں طاقت پاؤں میں کیسے دکھائے لاش ماں کو پالا تھا وہ جس نے چھاؤں میں آگے بڑھ کے دے کے صدا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا
حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا حل من ناصر ینصرنا یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین گونج رہی ہے یہ صدا یا حسین گونج رہی ہے یہ صدا یا حسین تجھ کو لعینوں نے ستایا حسین یا حسین تین شب و روز کا پیاسا حسین دشت بلا میں تجھے مارا حسین یا حسین یا حسین بیچ کے خط تجھ کو بلایا گیا تجھ کو بلایا گیا تیرا وطن تجھ سے چھڑایا گیا بیچ کے خط تجھ کو بلایا گیا قبر سے نانا کی ہٹایا گیا قبر سے نانا کی ہٹایا گیا پے کرے تسلیم و رضا یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین گونج رہی ہے یہ صدا یا حسین تجھ کو لعینوں نے ستایا حسین کرب و بلا گھیر کے لائے تجھے کرب و بلا گھیر کے لائے تجھے ارے تیرے عزیز اور رفقا ساتھ تھے گھیر کے لائے تجھے نہر سے خیمے بھی ہٹائے گئے میں بھی ہٹائے گئے عذر ذرا بھی نہ کیا یا حسین یا حسین کیا شب عاشور کا ہنگام تھا کیا شب عاشور
کا ہنگامہ تھا ارے سارا جہاں لرزہ برنگام تھا کیا شب عاشور کا ہنگام تھا تجھ کو عبادت سے فقط کام تھا تجھ کو عبادت سے فقط کام تھا کرتا رہا ذکر خدا یا حسین 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 حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا روبرو بابا کے جب خاتون جنت آئے گی خالی جولی سرورے کونین کو دکھلائے گی پھر یقین کہلائے گا پھر یقین کہلائے گا محشر کا میدان دیکھنا حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا رکھ دیا برچی نے اکبر کا کلیجہ چیر کے رخ بدل ڈالے ہیں امت نے تیری تصویر کے مالک کوثر ذرا مالک کوثر ذرا امت کا احسان دیکھنا حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا اصغر معصوم کے لب پر سوال آب ہے بوند پانی کے لیے کس قدر بیتاب ہے نہر سے پانی نہیں نہر سے پانی نہیں دیتے مسلمان دیکھنا حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا زینب و کلثوم سے کہتا تھا شمر بعد گوہر شام میں جاؤ گے ننگے سر پھرو گے در بدر کربلا کے بعد اب کربلا کے بعد اب تاریخ زندہ دیکھنا حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا حشر میں رنگ لائے گا خون شہیداں دیکھنا
آخر کا وقت کہنا میرا یہ سلام ہے سب عاشق حسین کو میرا سلام ہے حل کیجیے مشکل میری اب دیر ستم ہے عباس علی تم کو سکینہ کی قسم ہے یا موسی کاظم ہمیں آفت سے چراؤ یا موسی کاظم ہمیں آفت سے چراؤ بہرے حسن حسین مصیبت سے بچاؤ بر محمد وال محمد صلوات
السلام علیکم یا ابا عبداللہ وعلى الراحل التي حلت بفنائك عليكم من جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل النهار. ولا جعل الله آخر أحد من زيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا مولاي يا غريب الغرباء مولانا علي بن موسى الرضا، كن شفيعنا وشفيع والدينا في يوم الجزاء. السلام عليك وعلى أختك فاطمة المعصومة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا حجة الله يا ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان، الأمان 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 يا شريك القرآن ويا كعبة الإيمان وإمام الإنس والجان، عجل الله لك ما وعدك من النصر وظهور الأمر. السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته مع الصلوات.